Hi friends, what's up? It's Jaime here. Welcome back to another Fangirl Fridays video. In celebration of AAPI Heritage Month, I thought it would be fun to highlight some of my favorite Asian and Asian American authors. Keep in mind that while every author I'm going to mention in this video is Asian, not all of them are Asian American. Some of these authors are Asian but not from the US, but I still wanted to include them in this video, so that's why I'm going to talk about them here. Similarly to my Book Recs by Black Authors video that I uploaded back in February, first I'm going to go over Asian authored books that I've already read, and then I'm going to quickly highlight some of the books that are on my immediate TBR list. Also, I'm going to try to go as fast as I can because there are a lot of books that I need to get through in this video, so without further ado, let's get into the video. First up, to the surprise of literally no one, we have The Korean Vegan Cookbook by Joanne Molinaro. It's been a minute since I've talked about Joanne on the channel, but rest assured I am just as obsessed and in awe of her as I have always been. So in case you don't know, Joanne Molinaro is a Korean-American full-time lawyer turned content creator whose TikToks and YouTube videos center veganized Korean food. But what really makes Joanne's content so special are the stories that she recounts from her life. Stories about her parents, her grandparents, her running journey, her divorce, so many different things as she's preparing all these different vegan Korean recipes. If you aren't following Joanne on YouTube and TikTok, you are severely missing out and you need to go fix your life. You need to go fix yourself right now. But if you are already following Joanne and you don't have her cookbook, I would very much recommend that you grab this book. Now, usually I would feel a little silly being like, I read a cookbook, but the thing about Joanne's cookbook and what I really love about it is that it very much reflects like her style of like content on like TikTok and YouTube, in that throughout the cookbook, like sprinkled in between each of the recipes are the stories of like her family history that are just so beautifully interwoven and intertwined, and like there's just such a deep connection between her family history and then like all the food that she's preparing, and it's beautiful. You just, oh my god. So in a way, it's almost like kind of like reading a memoir, but like with recipes. Like, it's awesome. I literally read it all in one sitting, and I'm always in awe of Joanne's storytelling. There's just a certain way that she conveys stories that I've just always found. I've talked about this before on the channel, that I've just always found just so compelling and also just so comforting. And it's just, again, this book is full of that. Because I've been so busy, unfortunately I haven't actually gotten the chance to try out any of the recipes, but I'm hoping that this summer I'll finally get the chance to do so, because I've just had this book forever. Well, not forever, since it came out essentially. I've had this book for that amount of time, and I haven't made anything from it, but I would like to do so this summer, hopefully, fingers crossed. In any case, even if you aren't somebody who like cooks a lot like myself, you definitely need to read the Korean Vegan Cookbook, because again, it's just the stories that are told in this book are so beautiful. They're so tender and heartwarming, and as you can probably tell from the cover of the book, like the photography is just, I'm like, it's so good. It's so good. Okay, next up we have Crying in H Mart, a memoir by Michelle Zauner. Michelle is a Korean-American musician and author, and she is best known as being the lead singer of the band Japanese Breakfast. I actually went into Crying in H Mart without really knowing all that much about Michelle. Like, I knew about her vaguely, but all I really knew about her was like what Google told me, essentially. But I had heard so many good things about Crying in H Mart. I had heard so many people raving about it, and then I had seen that Joanne had recommended Crying in H Mart on her Instagram stories, and I was like, okay, now that I know it's gotten like the Joanne Molinaro seal of approval, I'm like, I've gotta go check this out. Like, I'd already planned on reading this book anyway, but once Joanne recommended it, I was like, okay, yeah, I know this is gonna be really good. So I got this book last year for Christmas, and I finally got around to reading it a couple months ago in February, and y'all, this book is not for the faint of heart. Don't get me wrong, it is so good. Like, it is such an excellent read, but especially if you have lost a loved one to cancer, this book is going to wreck you. Like, I just must warn you of that. Essentially, this memoir centers around Michelle's complicated relationship with her mother's cancer diagnosis and battle and subsequent death, and then the grief that followed. As someone who has also lost a loved one to cancer, Michelle was really able to hone in on just the ugliest and the most painful parts of watching someone you love wither away before your eyes. And it's so devastating in a way that's very difficult to put into words, but Michelle does it in a way that's so poignant and powerful, and it made me cry so much. So while this book is such an incredible read, like, I genuinely do really recommend this book. I really only recommend reading it if you feel that you are in the headspace to be able to handle it, because again, it's a very like raw look into death and grief, and it's very emotional. Again, such a good book, but it's a lot, so just be warned on that front. Okay, next up we have The Wrath and the Dawn duology by Korean-American author Renee Actia. Now, I plan on making a whole video where I give like a really deep dive of my in-depth thoughts about this duology, but the short version is that I really love these books. As a quick little spoiler-free summary, also please forgive my pronunciations of these names, The Wrath and the Dawn is the story of Shahrazad, a teenage girl who agrees to marry Khalid, the boy king caliph of the fictional Arabian-inspired kingdom Khorasan, as an act of revenge. Khalid has taken almost 100 wives and has had them all executed at dawn. One of these wives was Shiva, Shahrazad's best friend, and now Shahrazad is plotting to kill Khalid in retaliation. If you are a fan of YA novels, fantasy, enemies to lovers, romances, then you're probably gonna like these books. It's been so long since I have read, like, it's been a couple of years since I've read anything within the YA genre demographic, and honestly, these books were really a breath of fresh air. Again, I'm working on a whole separate video where I really get into like all of my in-depth thoughts about this duology as a whole. It's just taking me a very long time to get that video together, but once that video goes up, you can hear me gush for however many minutes that video ends up being about these books. Again, the short version though is that I love them. Again, if you like YA, fantasy, enemies to lovers kind of things, then you're probably gonna enjoy these books. All right. Oh, I'm so excited for this next one. Next up, we have Last Night at the Telegraph Club, a queer historical fiction novel by Chinese-American author Melinda Lo. Just like with the Wrath and the Dawn duology, I have a whole video planned that I'm going to make dedicated to this book that's coming up this Pride Month, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, when I say that this book very well may become my new favorite book of all time, I am not exaggerating. Like, I am not kidding. I had always heard so many good things about this book when I really started getting into reading like sapphic and queer literature within the past year. Like, I had heard so many good things about this book. So many people were raving about it, and so like I knew it was going to be good, and yet even when I read it, I was still unprepared for how fucking good it actually is. Like, oh my god. Last Night at the Telegraph Club is the story of Lily Hu, a Chinese-American high school senior living in 1950s California. We follow Lily as she begins to come to terms with her sexuality and as she starts to form a relationship with her classmate Kath Miller during their nights out to the lesbian bar, the Telegraph Club. To the surprise of no one, Lily and Kath are forced to keep their relationship a secret due to the general intolerance and stigma surrounding homosexuality in 1950s America, and also because Chinese Americans are getting deported left and right. And at the start of the story, Lily's dad gets his papers taken away, and so her going out with Kath, her going to the Telegraph Club, could put her family at risk. Last Night at the Telegraph Club is a beautiful coming-of-age story about baby gays, and it just, it'll make your heart all warm and fuzzy on the inside, but it will also not hesitate to rip your heart out and tear it to shreds. Like, this book is an emotional roller coaster. Like, it does, and you're gonna get emotional whiplash, but it's so good. The final chapters made me cry so much. There's one line specifically when Lily is having a conversation with one of her brothers that just, I started sobbing uncontrollably. Obviously, I can't say it because it's like very much spoiler territory, but oh, it was so, it was just, I don't know the word. It was just so devastating, but also beautiful. Like, again, just like this book, devastating, but also beautiful. Like, oh my god, those, that scene really wrecked me. Oh my god. Once again, I'm going to make a whole video. A whole video is going to be dedicated to just me gushing over how much I love this book to pieces, and just why I think it's just one of the greatest books I've ever read ever. But if you have not read Last Night at the Telegraph Club and you are queer, you need to read this book. Like, you just gotta trust me on this one. Like, if you take one thing away from this video, is you gotta read this book. Please, I'm begging you, honestly, because it's just, I need more people to experience how beautiful this book is. Next up, we have Unfollowing You, a poetry collection by Indian American author Komal Kapoor. Unfollowing You tells the story of a contemporary romance and subsequent heartbreak through a collection and combination of text messages, unsent letters, poems, and prose, and it really reads as like the stages of, this book really reads as like the stages of a relationship. So the first, like the talking stage is getting to know someone, then like the actual like relationship itself, and then the fallout of a relationship. It's very interesting. I've been in love with Komal's poetry since I first discovered her on Instagram. I've talked about this before on the channel. I've been a longtime fan of her work, and Unfollowing You really like delivered as a debut book. If you are a poetry fan, a poetry lover, then you should definitely follow Komal on Instagram at Kamalesque. If you are somebody who likes to read about like love and longing and heartbreak, her work is definitely something you should check out, again on Instagram, but also in the form of Unfollowing You. This was genuinely one of my favorite poetry books that I've ever read, and I've read quite a few poetry books. I actually have quite the collection of poetry books upstairs on my bookshelf. But yeah, this is definitely one of my favorites, easily. It was so good. All right, now that we've gone through all of the Asian authored books that I've already read, I now want to take you guys through my immediate TBR list of Asian authored books. Starting off, we have The Henna Wars, as well as, I don't have my physical copy yet, so I'm just going to insert a picture, Hani and Ishu's Guide to Fake Dating by Bangladeshi Irish author Adiba Jagadar. As you can see, I already have my copy of The Henna Wars. I got it when I did my book haul video like a month ago at this point. And my copy of Hani and Ishu should be coming within the next week in the mail. So I'm very excited about that. The Henna Wars and Hani and Ishu's Guide to Fake Dating are YA romance novels whose protagonists are of South Asian descent, with the exception of Flavia, though, from the Henna Wars, who I believe is of Brazilian and Irish descent. Once again, please forgive my pronunciations of these characters' names. But The Henna Wars follows Nishat, a Bangladeshi lesbian who finds herself in competition with her childhood friend Flavia over who is the best henna artist at their school. Hani and Ishu follows our titular characters, Hani Khan of Bangladeshi Irish descent and Ishu Day of Indian descent, as they agree to fake date in order to achieve their own respective goals. Hani comes out as bi to her friends, and they hit her with the classic biphobic line of, "You can't be bi, you've only dated men." And Ishu wants to become more popular so that she will be elected as head girl, which looks good for college. And so Hani and Ishu agree to be girlfriends to help each other out. So these books are kind of like enemies slash rivals to lovers kind of stories. At least The Henna Wars is definitely like a rivals, enemies to lovers kind of thing. I feel like you could kind of count Hani and Ishu as like falling under that category as well, at least from my understanding, from what I've read from that summary of that book, is that like Hani's friends don't like Ishu. I don't know how Hani feels about Ishu right off the bat. So I'm just gonna find that out when I read the book. But yeah, and I've heard a lot of good things about these two books, so I'm very, very excited to read them. The Henna Wars is literally like right next up on my list of books to read. I've recently been reading A Snake Falls to Earth by Darcy Little Badger, which has been so good, by the way. Oh, can we just again have make a little commotion for this cover? So beautiful. But yeah, so I've been reading this book recently, so I haven't gotten the chance to start the Henna Wars yet, but again, it's literally next on my list, so very excited to start it. And then again, like I said before, my copy of Honey and Issue should be arriving soon, within like the next couple of days. So once I get that, I hope to start it after I finish the Henna Wars. Next up on my TBR, we have Fiona and Jane by Taiwanese author Jean Chen Ho. Fiona and Jane follows our titular characters' childhood best friends, Fiona Lin and Jane Shen, and their lives over the span of 2 decades, and essentially how they fade in and out of each other's lives as they go about growing up. The book alternates between Fiona and Jane's perspectives, and it essentially focuses on how their friendship both serves as a source of comfort while also being a reminder of loss. And the book covers an array of topics ranging from queerness to identity to grief. I am super excited to read this book. It's been on my TBR for a while, and I plan to read it when I go on vacation in June, which I'm very excited about. So I'm just excited to be like lounging by the pool, reading my little queer book. Like, I'm just excited. I'm so excited. And last, but certainly not least, we have A Scatter of Light by Melinda Lo. A Scatter of Light follows Aria Tang West as she navigates her sexuality in 2013 California, which is the year that gay marriage was legalized in California. I had always planned to read A Scatter of Light because as I was reading last night at the Telegraph Club, I quickly fell in love with Melinda Lo's writing, and I was like, I need to read more by her. Like, that was already a thought that was in my head. But then I found out that so Last Night at the Telegraph Club and A Scatter of Light are standalone novels. Like, you don't need to read one to understand the other. Like, they are their own kind of like standalone stories. However, they are like, I found out that they are connected in a very beautiful way, and I need to read it. Like, that really sold me on reading A Scatter of Light. Again, I was gonna read it anyway, but that just like put it like over the edge. I'm like, I need to read this book like now. I still have so many books I need to get through though. Like, between the books I mentioned in this video and then also just some other books that I didn't mention that are on my TBR list, like, I have a lot of books to read, but the moment that I have an opening, you better believe I'm gonna read A Scatter of Light. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm like, I'm like frothing at the mouth. I'm like, I need to read this book now. But no, I need to get through the books I said I was gonna get through first, but I'm very excited to read A Scatter of Light. Anyway, that's all I have for today's Fangirl Fridays video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know down below in the comments if you guys have any AAPI authored like book recommendations. Specifically, if you have any Pacific Islander authored books, that would be really great, because I don't have any. I've never read any books by Pacific Islander authors. So again, those recommendations would especially be very much appreciated. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I upload Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, except when I don't, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.